All right. One of the ways you talk about getting your arms around the spending was something that you suggested back in June, and that is that Social Security, the retirement age ought to be raised to the age of 70. Is that something that the GOP will campaign on in the fall?
Well, David, I think it's time for the American people to have an adult conversation about the problems that we face. These entitlement programs serve tens of millions of Americans, and they're critically important. But we also know that these programs are unsustainable in their current form. And I really do think it's time that we sit down and we talk to the American people together to solve them. And I think we need to bring Democrats and Republicans together in order to solve this problem.
And so you favor raising the retirement age?
David, there are a lot of options about how you solve these. But I don't want to get the cart before the horse. I think it's important to have this conversation. It's going to be a difficult conversation, but it's time to have it, and it's time to come up with some solutions that are done in a bipartisan way to help address these problems.
Let me talk about the midterm race. Several months ago, back in March, you thought it would be a steep climb for Republicans to retake the House. What do you say today?
I believe that it is a challenge for us to take back the House. But we've got candidates, more candidates than we've ever had. We have 430 districts with one or more Republican candidates in the race. We have the better candidates than we ever have. But we want to earn back the majority in order to renew our effort to go after a smaller, less costly, and more accountable federal government in Washington, D.C.
But you still think it's a challenge. It was interesting, the President's press secretary, Robert Gibbs, as you know, said on this program that he thought there was possible that Republicans could take over the House. He now believes that's not the case. That caused quite a stir. What impact do you think that had, and yet it hasn't changed your view about the challenges that Republicans face?
Well, David, listen, it's only August. There are a lot of things that can happen between now and Election Day. Is it possible? Yes, it certainly is possible. There are 100 seats in play around the country, and 94 of them are held by Democrat members. I've been all over my district. I've been through a lot of other districts. The American people are screaming at the top of their lungs to Washington, stop the spending, stop the job-killing policies, and yet Democrats in Washington refuse to listen to the American people. Republicans have been listening all summer with our program, America Speaking Out. Well, we're listening. We're going to come forward with our agenda right after Labor Day.
Right after Labor Day. Why wait until then? Why not do it now?
I think it's important that we listen to the American people. It's not about what I think. It's about what the American people think. And at AmericaSpeakingOut.com, hundreds of thousands of people have given us ideas about what Washington should be doing. People have voted on other people's ideas. And if people want to go to AmericaSpeakingOut.com, they can participate in this. And out of this listening, we will have a governing agenda to get this country on track.
Leader Boehner, you are certainly campaigning to be the next speaker. As a matter of fact, you can go on BoehnerForSpeaker.org and order a mug, among other items, to support that effort. And yet, the President of the United States is going to fundraisers around the country and slamming Republicans. This is one of the things that he says.
They have not come up with a single solitary new idea to address the challenges of the American people. They don't have a single idea that's different from George Bush's ideas. Not one.
What do you say to that?
When I handed Nancy Pelosi the gavel 18 months ago, I said that if Republicans had to oppose our Democrat colleagues or our new president, it was our obligation to tell the American people how we would do it differently. Every time we've opposed our Democrat colleagues, we've offered what we thought was a better solution, each and every time. And when we roll out our agenda, we're going to roll out our solutions to solve the problem of the joblessness in America, to get Americans back to, and how we would control spending.
Will you offer specific spending cuts to offset the money that's lost by extending tax cut?
Listen, we've offered all kinds of spending cuts. As a matter of fact, Paul Ryan and Jeb Hensarling, two leaders on our budget committee, have offered $1.3 trillion worth of spending cuts. We've offered these to the president, asked the president to send rescissions to the Congress, and we offered to work with him to enact those rescissions. Why don't we stop the stimulus spending? There's still about $400 or $500 billion of the stimulus plan that has not been spent. Why don't we stop it? It's not working. Secondly, why don't we make sure that we get all the TARP funds back and use it to pay down the deficit? Why don't we put a cap on discretionary spending at much lower levels than what we have today? It's time to stop the spending.
The President, of course, has called for a cap of discretionary spending.
I'm talking about a real cap, like at 2008 levels, not at 2010 levels.
All right, let me ask you about a couple of other topics, including the ethics scandal surrounding Congressman Charlie Rangel. There's news out this morning that there was a deal that was being discussed and that it was Republicans who stood in the way. They wanted a trial. Is that accurate?
I would have no idea. Under the rules of the House, the Ethics Committee proceedings are private. This is the only committee in the Congress where we have 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats. And from what I read in the press, the charges against Mr. Rangel were brought by 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats together. But this isn't about Charlie Rangel. This is about Nancy Pelosi's biggest failure. She said that it was time to drain the swamp. Not once during this entire 2-year proceeding has she called for Chairman Rangel to step down from his post as the ranking Democrat on the Ways and Means Committee.
Is that what you're doing this morning?
And really, he already stepped down, but he did it on his own, and frankly, it was much too late.
Should he step down from Congress, from his seat?
I think that's for Charlie to decide. But I do think it's time to hold members of Congress accountable. The American people deserve to have members of Congress of highest of ethical standards, and it has not happened. I told my colleagues 18 months ago when I became their leader that I was going to hold members accountable, and I have.
Leader Boehner, one final question that's been kind of a hot-button issue this week, and that is calls by some Republicans to amend the Constitution to change the 14th Amendment, which provides birthright citizenship if you're born in this country. As a matter of fact, on the RNC's website, the 14th Amendment is listed as an accomplishment of the Republicans of its legacy over time. Do you support efforts to have the 14th Amendment amended at this point?
Well, David, I'm not the expert on this issue, but I have read these comments here over this past week. But I think that there is a problem. To provide an incentive for illegal immigrants to come here so that their children can be U.S. citizens does, in fact, draw people to our country. I do think that it's time for us to secure our borders and enforce the law and allow this conversation about the 14th Amendment to continue.
But do you have a position on it?
Listen, I think it's worth considering, but it's a serious problem that affects our country, and in certain parts of our country, clearly our schools, our hospitals are being overrun by illegal immigrants, a lot of whom came here just so their children could become U.S. citizens.
All right, Leader Boehner.
They should do it. They should do it the legal way.
All right, Leader Boehner, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your views.
Thank you.